About a year ago, while a few of my friends and I were studying for a test we were all extremely nervous about, one of my friends said the common phrase uttered by most confused students: "I don't know how to learn this." Now, at the time, the rest of us thought that he was making a comment on his immediate inability to grasp the concept, and we had a good laugh about it at the time. But later in the day, I got to thinking. We've all had that feeling before, like we just couldn't understand something that others around us understood with relative ease. What gives? Do we just have our off days, or is there something deeper? It often feels like the only reason for school is to recite memorized information for the next test, only to get us into more difficult classes, meaning that we have to memorize even more complex concepts such as the many different formulas of math or the multitude of important dates in history. Information can often mush together and it can become very difficult to recall. Historically, school has always rewarded this ability of students to recall and recite such information, more colloquially referred to as random facts, and a student's capacity for this ability is called their crystallized intelligence, a term coined by Richard Cattell back in 1963 with his theory on general intelligences. Students who perform best in the classroom in metrics such as GPA and standardized test scores are usually the students with a larger than average crystallized intelligence. Cattell also introduced another type of intelligence with his theory on general intelligence called fluid intelligence. Our fluid intelligence is essentially our problem-solving ability. However, this is less rewarded in the classroom, a trend dating all the way back to the Industrial Revolution and the creation of the public school system, where students were turned into the perfect factory workers, being able to follow orders and memorize algorithms. However, this is a part of the brain that we want and should be able to grow. Our problem-solving ability has allowed us to make exponential leaps in technology and society. And this undervaluation of fluid intelligence in the classroom creates a problem within our society, where students with a larger crystallized intelligence are often more confident going into the workforce than students who graduate with a larger fluid intelligence, who are more insecure about their abilities, however could and probably would do a better job than the former. A little-known physicist by the name of Albert Einstein, you may have heard of him, said or echoed the same sentiment, saying that true education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. And credit where credit is due, educators around the world today are beginning to nurture this fluid intelligence in students from a young age. I mean, students, you must have been asked at some point to make connections between the material you're reading in class and your previous experiences or other material you've read. While analyzing the Antigone, a tragic Greek play based on the ancient myth of Oedipus Rex, my literature teacher took the analysis far deeper than I expected, making connections from the comparisons between the lives of Oedipus and Tantalus in Greek mythology to the parallels of their daughters' lives because of their infamy. These discussions based on the connections we make are the most vital in truly understanding new concepts, anchoring down these new ideas to facts that we already know and experiences that you, well, experience. Learning is the act of bridging the connection between the facts we know and the memories that we make. And knowing how to learn how to make those connections has allowed us humans to discover the trivial knowledge we learn from a young age today. Biologically speaking, when you learn, you literally make physical connections between the neurons in your brain, a process known as neuroplasticity. One common definition of neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to form and reorganize synaptic connections, usually in response to learning or experience. However, neurology is still an emerging science. So there's two readily accepted and discussed forms of neuroplasticity: structural neuroplasticity and functional neuroplasticity. Structural neuroplasticity is commonly acknowledged to be the encompassing idea of neuroplasticity, essentially the physical connection, or the creation of those physical connections between our neurons. Functional neuroplasticity builds upon that definition, being our brain's ability to change the functional properties of our neurons, essentially correcting mistakes in our previous knowledge on anything. When a toddler learns to walk, they often try to emulate their parents, but when they fall and they get back up, they eventually learn not to fall for those same mistakes, pun intended. And these learning techniques can be used to learn virtually anything. Take, for instance, learning the theory on general intelligences. Crystals tend to usually be very hard, very solid, not really able to fit most of the containers that they're put in. The same way that hard facts only solve problems completely that are geared towards those solutions. Fluids, on the other hand, fill the container they're in regardless of the shape of that container. The same way our problem-solving ability allows us to solve virtually any kind of problem. See, learning's not that bad. You just learned 40 years worth of neurology in the past 5 minutes. And with all the information in the world at our fingertips, there's no reason for us to stuff our head with all this information to regurgitate it for the next assessment. Being able to connect a few key details allows us to reconstruct the whole course during the exam. So to the friend who probably isn't listening to this right now and is currently stressing over the next test, I say, that's how you learn anything. Thank you.